Hey there, welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into a captivating topic that delves into the intricate perceptions Americans have about Europeans. We'll be breaking down various viewpoints and discussing what shapes these perceptions. So, if you're eager to explore how Americans see Europeans, stick around. Many Americans commonly think that Europeans heavily rely on the U.S. for security support. They believe that Europeans should take a more proactive role in protecting their interests. This involves investing significantly more in their military capabilities and forming stronger partnerships with the U.S. to maintain global stability. This perspective emphasizes the need for a joint effort, highlighting the importance of working together to effectively address changing geopolitical circumstances. Americans often perceive Europeans as having better social welfare, such as universal health care, paid parental leave, and unemployment benefits. For example, in France, the government spends almost a third of its GDP on social services. In Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, workers are entitled to generous paid parental leave, ranging from 52 to 69 weeks. In Finland, unemployed people receive a basic income of €560 per month for 2 years, regardless of their other income or assets. These and other social benefits are seen by many Americans as more desirable and fair than the U.S. system, which relies more on private insurance and individual responsibility. Now, let's zoom in on innovation. Some Americans view Europeans as being less innovative and entrepreneurial than Americans, who value creativity and risk-taking. For example, Americans often cite the fact that many of the world's leading technology companies, such as Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and Facebook, are based in the United States and were founded by Americans. They also point out that immigrants from different countries, especially those with high levels of risk-taking, are more likely to become entrepreneurs in the United States than in their home countries. Many Americans see themselves as more outgoing than Europeans, who may be reserved to strangers. Americans tend to value individualism, self-expression, and friendliness, while Europeans tend to value collectivism, privacy, and formality. For example, Americans are more likely to smile at strangers, initiate small talk, or invite new acquaintances to their homes than Europeans. Americans also tend to use more informal language and gestures such as first names, hugs, or high fives, while Europeans tend to use more formal language and gestures such as titles, handshakes, or kisses on the cheek. Many Americans often criticize Europeans for having a bureaucratic system of government, which can be slow, complex, and rigid. They argue that bureaucracy hinders efficiency, investment, and responsiveness to the needs and preferences of the citizens. For example, Americans may point out that the European Union has a complicated structure with many different organs and committees, each with its own rules and procedures, which can create confusion and delays in decision-making. Americans often see Europeans as more worldly and knowledgeable than themselves, due to their proximity to other countries and regions and their travel habits. This is because of the ease and affordability of traveling within Europe, thanks to the European Union's open borders, common currency, and low-cost airlines. For example, according to a 2015 survey, a median of 86% of Europeans have visited another EU country at least once in their lives, compared with only 36% of Americans who have traveled to a foreign country. Americans may also perceive Europeans as more knowledgeable about global issues and affairs, as they tend to follow international news more closely and have more nuanced views on foreign policy. Many Americans have a negative attitude towards the high taxes that Europeans pay, which they regard as a hindrance to the economic growth and the personal liberty of the people. Americans believe that high taxes reduce the incentives for work and investment, and that they create inefficiencies and distortions in the market. Americans also value their freedom to choose how to spend their money and how to live their lives, and they resent the government interference and regulation that high taxes entail. Americans often see Europeans as more fashionable and stylish than themselves, due to their sense of elegance, flair, and quality. This is partly because of the different cultural norms and values that influence the way people dress and present themselves. Americans tend to value comfort, convenience, and practicality, while Europeans tend to value sophistication, refinement, and originality. For example, Americans are more likely to wear casual clothes such as jeans, t-shirts, sneakers, and baseball caps, while Europeans are more likely to wear chic clothes such as suits, dresses, leather shoes, and scarves. Americans also tend to follow trends and brands that are popular in the mass market, while Europeans tend to experiment with their own style and seek out quality items that last longer. Some Americans think that Europeans should be more grateful to Americans for saving them in World War II. They believe that America was the main force behind the Allied victory over Nazi Germany and its allies, and that without America's intervention, Europe would have been doomed to fascism and genocide. They cite examples of America's involvement in the war, such as supplying weapons, supplies, and loans to the Allies through the Lend-Lease program, launching the Air War, the D-Day invasion, and the liberation of Western Europe, and sacrificing hundreds of thousands of lives and enormous resources to help free Europe from tyranny and oppression. They expect Europeans to acknowledge and appreciate this generosity and assistance, and to maintain a strong alliance with America in the post-war era. Americans are often surprised by the smaller size of cars, houses, hotel rooms, and food portions in Europe. For instance, the contrast between the top-selling vehicles in the US and Europe is striking. In 2021, the US witnessed the domination of pickup trucks like the Ford F-Series, Chevrolet Silverado, and Ram pickup. In contrast, Europe's best sellers were compact hatchbacks such as the Volkswagen Golf, Peugeot 208, and Dacia Sandero. Housing sizes also contribute to this observation. The average property size in England and Wales in 2016 was around 90 square meters, whereas new single-family homes in the U.S. completed in the same year boasted an average size of 249 square meters. Hotel rooms in the U.S. are more spacious, averaging around 325 square feet, compared to Europe's average of 215 square feet. The culinary scene follows suit. A small drink in the UK contains 250 milliliters, while its US counterpart measures 473 milliliters. Similarly, a large fries in the UK weighs about 150 grams, while the American counterpart tips the scale at 198 grams. Americans often see Europeans as more polite than themselves, due to their adherence to etiquette, manners, and courtesy. This is partly because of the different cultural norms and expectations that govern social interactions in both regions. Americans tend to value informality and self-expression, while Europeans tend to value formality, respect, and restraint. Americans may have different standards of personal space, volume, and eye contact than Europeans. Moreover, Europeans have specific rules of etiquette for various situations, such as greeting shopkeepers, asking for directions, or eating at a table. Americans may not be aware of these rules or may find them unnecessary or excessive. Religion's role shapes perception. Americans often perceive Europeans as more secular and less religious due to their lower rates of church attendance, belief in God, and importance of religion in their lives. According to a Pew Research Center report, only 11% of Western Europeans attend religious services at least weekly, compared with 37% of Americans. Similarly, only 27% of Western Europeans say they believe in God as described in the Bible, compared with 56% of Americans. Moreover, only 11% of Western Europeans say religion is very important in their lives, compared with 53% of Americans. Americans often exhibit a greater inclination towards optimism compared to their European counterparts. This difference is noticeable in various aspects of life, from personal outlooks to societal perspectives. For instance, surveys indicate that a higher percentage of Americans report feeling very happy with their lives in comparison to Europeans. This optimism can also be observed in economic attitudes, where Americans may express more confidence in upward mobility and the potential for success. Finally, let's talk communication. Many Americans see Europeans as more direct and honest. For example, Americans are more likely to use euphemisms, compliments, and exaggerations to avoid offending or hurting others, while Europeans are more likely to use blunt, straightforward, and factual language to express their opinions or feedback. Americans are also more likely to express enthusiasm, satisfaction, and gratitude for things that Europeans may find ordinary, mundane, or expected. On the other hand, Europeans are more likely to express doubt, dissatisfaction, and criticism for things that Americans may find acceptable, good, or exceptional. We appreciate you joining us until the end. We'd love to hear from you. Do you find yourself agreeing or disagreeing with these viewpoints? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching.